Welcome everybody to the Holistic Evolution Podcast with Scott and Kelli. And I'm obviously Scott, and
I'm Kelli.
Obviously.
Hey guys.
And we want to say welcome back, but it's not like you went anywhere. We did. We've had a couple of weeks of just like I think since Thanksgiving, right? Just been crazy.
Yeah, just nonstop. Arose. But we're here.
We're here. We had busy stuff. We had bad stuff. We had good stuff. I fell down. I got hurt. I hurt my leg, and I couldn't do a podcast. I still haven't figured out how that works.
And the karate Reiki wasn't.
I could not do karate Reiki. Yeah. Daniel's already waving at us. Daniel, thank you for joining us, brother. Just want to say, Kelli, you look great. How have you been? Everything good?
So have you, like now that you're, vertical and everything.
Yeah, the horizontal thing was
that doesn't go well.
Not a good thing.
But no, thanks for asking. I'm good. Everything is well, and I'm excited for today.
I know. Well, one of the things that we want to do is certainly we want to answer questions about holistic healing. I have some experience with things like in the nature of massage and acupuncture and chiropractic from a business sense, because I used to run a business that had some of those things. And I also understand hyperbaric chamber and other things. But Kelli is a practitioner, so she understands how it all works. Plus, you work with energy and everything else, which is great. So you can always ask us questions. But we don't ever want it to be just us. We want to bring people in. And this is somebody you're really excited to have on, right, Kelli?
Yeah, very much so. So just a little bit about me in case everybody here is new. I have been a massage therapist and Reiki practitioner for 19 years. And in that 19 years, I have also gone to school for alternative medicine. And I am just in love with everything holistic and natural. And so my own journey took me to find a lot of practitioners throughout my healing journey after car accidents and, things like that would pop up. And biofeedback that we're going to talk about today is one of the many modalities, but one of the most profound modalities that I personally ever experienced and ever had my loved ones experience. I found it in 2005 and it was life-changing. So the practitioners that I had no longer practiced. And so then I found Karen, that we'll see today. And I was so excited to find her because this is life-changing.
That's fantastic. Another friend joining us, Danette.
Hi, Danette.
Am I saying her name right?
Danette. Mm-hmm. Yep.
Yeah, she shows up on my true crime podcast now too, which is she's like she's got a lot of good ideas for that.
You appeal to all of her sides.
Perfect. Yes. Perfect. And just so you know, for those of you who don't know, I work and spend my life dedicated to helping people with addictions and mental health issues, coming from an addiction myself and spending many years in a bad place, and understanding that some of these holistic modalities have been extremely helpful, and I found them to be monumental in helping people to recover from addiction, regain their life, regain their health, regain their balance in their body, because it is so out of whack. So all of this stuff, please, we're open books, but let's bring Karen in, because that's enough about us. I'm going to take a nap while you guys talk. I'm kidding. Let's bring her on in. And this is Karen de Gloria.
Hi, everyone.
There we go.
Karen.
Hey, Scott. Hi, Kelli. Thank you for having me.
Where are you, Karen, right now? Are you in?
I'm in Sarasota, but I'm actually in my office right now.
No, I mean, you're in Sarasota, Florida.
Sarasota, Florida. Yes. Mm-hmm.
Okay, so you're in Florida. I'm in Florida, and one poor person is stuck in Jersey.
Come on, Kelli, you got to come back to Florida.
I know, your lips to God's ears.
I just got to tell you, it's a little cool down here in Florida tonight, because I do believe that just to make you feel better, Kelli, it has got a cold streak going on right now. It's 76.
Oh, that's perfect.
Okay, now she hates me. Please, Kelli, tell me about how you met Karen and what she does.
Karen is amazing. She is one of those people who started in allopathic traditional medicine as a nurse, and then kind of came to the bright side of holistic wellness and holistic well-being. I actually met her at a restaurant that's a raw food restaurant in It was at Palm Harbor at the time. Right now it's in Oldsmar, Florida. And she had co-founded it, and everything that she was doing in her raw food restaurant, I was just enamored with. And so I had been going there for several years, and that's how we got to be friendly.
Excellent. Excellent. We're getting a howdy from Mary Kay. Thanks for joining us, Mary Kay.
Hey, Mary Kay.
And New Jersey proud.
New Jersey
we don't need that. I'm really interested. The biggest thing I mentioned, now you work in I guess is a broad term. Holistic health is a fine term, right, Karen?
Yes, it is.
But that's not how you started your career.
No.
So tell me what happened.
Okay, well, when I graduated from college, I actually was going into nursing. And so I was an oncology nurse for many years. And I had my psych minor. And so that's kind of how I got started. And how that even came to be is, well, I originally wanted to go into physical therapy, and then I switched and went into nursing. I had my grandmother, who was very dear to me, die of cancer. And so it was one of those things where I just said, I want to really do something where I can be helpful. But it turned out that I wasn't being very helpful in that field. So, and what I mean by that is I just felt like I was literally poisoning people with the chemotherapy and the radiation treatments. And I saw people getting worse and worse instead of getting better. Some people were getting better, but a lot of them returned. And that was something that was a little bit concerning for me. And one of the things that kind of turned me on to more of the holistic side of things was some of the patients' family members would come in and ask me if they could bring in juices and if they could bring in like raw foods and stuff for their loved ones. And a lot of the nutritionists and different people and dietitians were like, no, you can't do that. But I didn't see a problem with it. I did some homework and research, and I would do homework and research every night when I went home, and found that it probably would be helpful. So why not? So I would just allow that to come in. And after a while of doing this and realizing that they were actually the ones that were getting better and not returning, I said there's something to this. So that's when I eventually just decided that when I moved to Florida, because I was in Boston, I grew up in Boston, Massachusetts, and I worked at a couple of hospitals there. I said, when I moved to Florida, I'm going to dedicate all of my time to just learning all of the more holistic ways to healing. And so that's basically what I did. So I never went back to nursing. I just left it completely.
Wow. Mm-hmm. Now, you're from Boston. I wouldn't have guessed Boston because I didn't hear you talk about parking the car either. So
try not to sound like that.
No, hey, listen, everybody I know is from New York City. They all got that accent there. Mm-hmm. But, I got to ask you, you mentioned something, and I want to make this very clear. You're not saying not to do some of those because you're saying it does work for some people.
For some people. Yes.
But it shouldn't be used as a panacea across the boards because it doesn't work for everybody, right? Is that the point you're making?
Yes. And I really feel that the two should come together. And I'd love to see that happen more because I really feel that a lot of people are understanding that their immune systems are getting wiped from just that alone. Obviously, their lifestyles brought them to a place where their immune systems are not functioning well in order to even have cancer develop. So then we go and we wipe it out even more. And so I saw that as to be a problem. And then what we're doing is we're giving them microwaved food in the hospital. We're giving them, foods that are like cooked to death. And so, and also too, we're just filling them up with a bunch of medications and a lot of immune suppressing drugs. And it just doesn't make any sense. Like if there's one thing that I really enjoyed learning in school was the immunology and microbiology and just the body itself. So when you really understand the body as a whole, it just didn't make sense to me. And that's kind of where, as I'm doing it and I'm watching this and I'm actually researching and understanding like, what is it that I'm giving this person? And I would do more homework and research on it. It was just not making any sense to me how many times people had so many complications. Like the complications sometimes is what was keeping them even more sick.
Right. Right.
So yeah, that was like a big problem for me. And it was really disheartening.
Absolutely. Kelly, we've talked about this is that, we're not anti-medication. We're not anti this or but it should not be the first answer for everything. It should not be. I mean, there's other things. Why not help the body to heal itself and to do those things? And that's the exciting part of all of this. So So you're doing all of this and you're like, this doesn't feel right. There's got to be another answer. What did you do then?
Well, when I left nursing and I moved to Florida, I actually started doing a lot of work on myself. So I was doing a lot of detoxes and I was actually learning a lot through my own process. So even myself, I was someone who was always considered myself in good shape. I thought I ate pretty well, although I liked my sugar foods. I loved snacks and just cakes and cookies and all that stuff. But I would always try to say like, well, I had a salad and I had a smoothie, so it's all right. I can have my sweets. And so that was my way of like kind of balancing it all out. And so I did some cleanses and I realized like actually how much actually inflammation was still in the body, even though you would never know that to look at me. Because I was working out every day in a gym. My weight was fairly like normal weight for my body. And I did a couple of cleanses and some people would say, oh, you're losing a little too much weight. But what I was doing is I was losing so much inflammation.
Right.
And just inflammation that, for maybe if I never did this would be so much worse if I was like getting up into my 40s, 50s, 60s. But so I was actually learning this in my late, probably mid to late 20s. And so I would actually do these cleanses and I'm like finding like my muscles, I had more striations. And I'm just like, well, I can't believe that this is happening to me. I'm only 20 something. And I'm realizing like I didn't even know that this could even be so good for someone my age who doesn't even have any problems, sort of say. I didn't think to myself that I had any issues. And the one thing that I noticed after like say a 10-day cleanse, and it took me a few days of coming off of it, I kind of tapered back into a healthy diet, but a normal diet. And I couldn't believe the amount of flexibility I had. Like that was something that was just I thought I had flexibility until I actually finished this cleanse. And then I was like, I can't believe I'm actually able to go into a split and not even have any issues at all. And that was something that I was like doing it around the house going, look at what I can do. And I was just like, I was so amazed of what just cleansing did that I had to start looking further and further. And I started like, that's what kind of turned me on to like eliminating more and more foods out of my diet. So I started eliminating all sugars and only eating healthy sugars. And then I went to eating no cooked food. And I did go a period of time where I was just raw vegetarian, but that works for me. That doesn't work for everybody either.
Right,
Like that's
right.
something I understand, like a lot of people need some cooked foods. But that was something that I did myself. And I stayed in that, probably 100% raw vegetarian for a good 12 to 15 years until I started incorporating more cooked foods back in. And I still I still do a lot better when I do mainly raw. But that's me.
Well, I have to ask you a question. I mean, you're talking about making these changes in your late 20s. Karen popped up there. Karen is my business partner, and she's all about all of this stuff. She's a Reiki master and does, she's taught me a lot about a lot of this. But this is a question actually for both of you, because a lot of people are starting to make changes, and most people aren't making changes in their 20s. That's kind of rare, actually. People are usually in their 30s, 40s, and even 50s before they start thinking, I got to make a change. Now, the problem is that we are inundated with so much information. I'm looking on Facebook, and all of a sudden it's got, this is a guaranteed way to get in shape and do this, a guaranteed way. This is the way to do it. Oh, we've got this. We just dug up this root in Africa, and if you take this root, it's going to make you smarter and make you fit. And there's so much misinformation out there. How does somebody find a pathway? Or things that you said you had to experiment and try some things.
Yes.
What are some good ways people can start that? I'd like to hear from both of you about what you think that would be.
Does somebody want to go first? Because I will say that's how I can actually bring in my biofeedback.
That's exactly what I was going to say.
Yeah, go for it. Because that's kind of where I ended up jumping into some energy medicine modalities and kind of learning about them. And then I found biofeedback. And what I found with biofeedback is that when you actually put somebody on, it's really clear as to it's interfacing with your subconscious, your unconscious mind. So it's telling me as biofeedback, what it is it's the feedback of the biology of a person's body. And so it's telling me what that person is deficient in and actually what they need and actually what might be actually blocking them from being able to even absorb certain things? What if it's like environmental toxins, or it could be that they don't realize like they have a lot of heavy metals in their body.
Mhm.
So it's starting to actually give this information. So a lot of times people get on like they read these books, or they watch these programs, and they're following someone's protocol that worked for them. And that is wonderful. And they actually could probably see tremendous change. However, it's still sometimes not exactly what they need for themselves. And so biofeedback is able to actually share with me as a practitioner so that I can help the person become aware of what their unique body truly needs, or what it doesn't need. Like it could even be like these things are actually really reacting strongly. It could be like, say, just for instance, gluten, or the other day, my significant other, he does not do well with peanuts, even though he likes them. So he found out that he should not probably be eating peanuts at all. And so that things like that, where you can actually share with people like, hey, you're reacting very strongly to these things. And maybe it's a good idea to either, take a break from them, and then we can see how you do after, or just completely eliminate it from your diet, especially when we know certain foods might be bringing in certain molds or mycotoxins into the body. And maybe that's something that is then like setting something else off. And so that's kind of where biofeedback can help us know that too. If they're having issues with fungus or mold or anything like that, then we might be like, oh, okay, well, the peanuts aren't helping.
So tell me a little bit about this. When we're talking about biofeedback, let's assume that nobody's ever heard of it before.
Mm-hmm.
What is the process? I mean, are we sticking electrodes in our head like Frankenstein? Or are we? No, I'm just saying, what is the process for, let's say, somebody just coming in and wanting to experience biofeedback? What would it be?
Well, it is electrodes that you put like right on it's like a strap.
I knew it.
So there is a strap.
I'm kidding.
It doesn't hurt. It's non-invasive. And then there's little straps you put on the wrists and on the ankles. And then there's like a 3-minute test. And so what that test is doing is it's basically, there's like 11,000 different, I would say, resonant frequencies of things in the matrix. It's software. And so what it's doing is it's feedbacking. So it's like a two-way feedback. It's sending the frequency of that, whatever it is, 11,000 things. It could be the actual organ of the body. It could be a chemical. It could be the vitamins, minerals, toxins, pathogens, you name it. Emotions. It can be emotions as well. And so then it's like it's asking you for your response. And so your response is coming back. And then when the test is complete, it's giving me in categories like acute, a little bit less than acute, and then like what could be possibly chronic. And so we kind of start to then break all that down and kind of see, okay, what's most acute, what's going on within the past, I would say, like day. And then there's what's been happening over the past several days, what's been happening over the past few weeks, and they're color coded basically. And then there's chronic. And then they're further categorized into like 40 different categories. So then those 40 categories, we start working on them as a whole. Like say, for instance, it could be like food poisoning, or it could be cardiovascular, or it could be respiratory, or it could be infection. So there's something, so it won't, like, it's not diagnostic. It's not going to say where supposedly the infection is, but it's going to say, hey, there's an imbalance. Take a look over here. There's an imbalance. There's an infection happening. So then we start digging through, and, if you're a good practitioner, you're going to dig, and it's kind of like jumping down a rabbit hole. And so you're starting to actually see through the panels. You just start going through, and it takes a good almost 2 hours to do a really good, thorough biofeedback session. And so you're really getting a good picture as to what's going on with this person.
Essentially, it's a computer program, right, Karen?
Yeah, it's almost like
doing quantum computer.
Yeah, and how I like to explain it is it's like a virus scan is to a computer. Biofeedback is to like for the body.
We have a question here that says, can Reiki also be used for biofeedback? Hopefully it's not a dumb question. There are no dumb questions, Mary Kay. Thank you for asking. But is Reiki, can that be used in some form with biofeedback, or is that a whole different animal, what we're talking about here?
Well, I will say that biofeedback is basically very similar to, I would say, like with energy. So there is a two-way. So basically, once the test is done, we are sending the normalizing frequencies to the body. So it's trying to get that body to remember what that organ is supposed to resonate at. So it is sort of working in that fashion, but maybe Kelly can probably explain, because she knows Reiki more than I do in that way.
Sure. I would probably say that whereas biofeedback is kind of collecting data from the system energetically, Reiki is using universal life force energy to send energy to wherever it needs to go in the body. So I feel like they could be used simultaneously, but maybe not exactly in place of one or the other. They're a little different in that sense, and they share energy in common. That is what makes them similar.
Yes, yes.
And I also want to say that even though Karen is in Sarasota, if you're listening in from anywhere in the world, you can do long distance, right?
Yes.
With biofeedback.
Okay. Yes, you can do remote sessions.
Absolutely. If you want some more information, go to frequencyfreedom.com. It's right there on the screen. And all your information's there about what they can figure out. And it takes you to different things. I imagine a lot of times you get doubters, probably both of you, from different things. I get doubters when I'm trying to help people get off of addictions. They say, no, I'll never get better. Well, no, you will. And one of the things I know is, Karen is one of the few people who is actually a custom formulator who can read hair samples for heavy metals. She's been trained in this. There's only like 300 in the country that are licensed to do this. And we've been talking about heavy metals for years, buildup of antimony, cadmium, mercury, zinc, nickel. All those things affect the harmony of the body, and they stay in the body for like 30 years. You have to chelate them out or find a way to get them out. But that's reading a hair sample, and that's using science and stuff. Now you're talking about something that kind of goes a little bit more into like a doubtful, like, oh, how does that really work? What do you mean you're reading my energy? How do you answer people? I mean, is there a good answer for that, or do you have to just hope that you get to show sometime?
Well, I mean, if people can understand that every single organ in our body, every organ, every gland, it actually has its own frequency. And so therefore, when it's reading it, it's going to tell us if there's like a disturbance there.
Right.
So that's kind of what we kind of talk about when we're saying it's reading, is because every single thing, I mean, even in an animated object has a frequency. So, but think about the body. I mean, every organ in the body has a frequency. And so therefore, if there's a heavy metal or a pathogen or something that has hit that part of the body, it's going to set it off balance. And so what biofeedback is doing is reading those responses of what's imbalanced in the body. What weak spots there are, or what blocks there are.
And also what's coming, right?
Yes. And so yeah, exactly. Because it's reading, that's a good point, Kelly, because one of the things, what makes it so different, which is one of the things I wanted to really bring up for people, is that when you go to like, say, get standard tests done, like say blood work done, CAT scans, x-rays, MRIs, they're reading what is happening at the physical level of the body. It's already there. It's already present. Right. And so there's something already wrong. So when you go for biofeedback, it's a great tool that you can use prophylactically, and something because you're reading the energetic body. There's a subtle energy level that it's reading, and it's going to share with you what's going on at that energy level before it becomes physical. So there's an area where we can go, we can turn this back with, the right diet, getting the right nutrients in. We can start looking at, do you need to do a heavy metal cleanse? Do you need to? So those are the things. That's why it's really good to coach people and have a background in, those detox modalities, nutrition, superfoods, proper eating, ways in which to modulate your immune system. It's really great to have that, because you can really share with someone great ways in which you can actually help to bring that body back to that normal way of, I guess, oscillating, you know what I mean? Like the frequency of the body. And so by doing that, you can actually really help that body get it back on that self-healing
Thank you so much.
mechanism.
Yeah, thank you so much for speaking into that, because I had
Absolutely.
a family member who did biofeedback when I originally found it, and the biofeedback technology found radiation poisoning.
Yes.
There were no symptoms.
Yeah.
It wasn't like this person went in there going, I have radiation poisoning, but
Right.
that came up on the biofeedback device as something that was like down the pike if you don't, do something proactively to address it. And the person had been through a lot of, airport security and had some MRIs and that kind of thing. So it's just fascinating watching how biofeedback can pick up on something that isn't even present, like as symptomatically yet in the body.
I actually,
Absolutely. I just want to read this comment real quick.
Sure.
Because it's Kim Quinn, Kelli. You know who she is.
I know who she is.
Hi, I'm listening with great interest. Does Karen have experience in healing? Was it Candida?
Candida.
Candida. Candida overload as a result of overtreatment with antibiotics. Do you have any experience in working with that?
Yes. Again, it's not just one thing. And that's what kind of biofeedback is really trying to share with people, is that usually you come in with a symptom and you find out all these other little things that are set things off and set things out of whack. And so we're going to end up finding what some of those things are that actually created that. And sometimes it could be that their candida overload even came from a heavy metal poisoning in the past, or something to that effect. So there's other reasonings why the candida overload happened. If it is specifically because of just the antibiotics, then sometimes the antibiotics, there's a lot still left in the body. There's like a residue of medications in the body. And so we have to kind of bring balance back there and bring balance back to the gut.
Wow.
And is it true, Karen, that also in addition to physical expression of something similarly to candida, everything is connected, right? And so biofeedback can find out where there are also potentially emotional,
yes,
or spiritual,
exactly.
or any level of where it's contributing, right? Because if something isn't healing physically, there's probably other elements as to why.
That's almost with everything. And that's where advanced biofeedback, like there's traditional biofeedback, which people know, like, can, help make people aware when they're not breathing well. And so they might be shallow breathers and they don't realize how stressed they are. And so they're in sympathetic versus parasympathetic. And so that's like traditional biofeedback. This is so much more advanced, where it's actually going to start sharing like where some of the connections are of physical and emotional, and where there may even be some kind of like, for instance, there is a panel where we can go to find out where past traumas are in childhood, say, for instance, or up until even the time of like right now in present time. So it doesn't express what the trauma is, but it'll say the age, because there's memory in the body everywhere. The unconscious part of ourselves stores everything. There's memory everywhere. And so a lot of times, just by being able to just nudge that, we can actually say, okay, it's time to release this. There's no need for this fear, or there's no need for this traumatic event to be present and creating problems in the here and now. And of course, it takes more than just one session. Again, everything, I mean, we didn't get this way overnight. It's going to take some time. It's going to take a certain amount of sessions, especially if it's something that is as old as going back as far as our childhood. But the fact is that usually on the day of the session, it's a snapshot of that day. And so whatever comes up on that day, which other ages will come up a different time, that it's really saying the body wants to release this now. And so even that in itself, and it usually has an emotional connection to it. And it can even share what part of the body, like what part of the memory it's in. It could be in hormonal memory. It can be in muscle memory. It could be in skin memory. And sometimes that can give us clues if the person can remember. And a lot of people sometimes don't remember right then and there, but they call me, or that on their next session, they're like, oh, I remembered, or they talk to a family member and they actually realized that what trauma it was. And sometimes it doesn't mean it has to be a big trauma. It can be something very small. It can be someone said something pretty nasty to you when you were 5 years old at school and it traumatized you. And it caused something to happen that cascaded and creates issues later on. So it doesn't have to be a big trauma.
Nicole is joining us saying, I wish insurance paid for this. I use an IMRS Matt. Holy, it's too many letters. It's too many letters. Whatever they're selling you is Matt, M-A-T. That's good. With visual and audio, it was a game changer healing from my last traumatic brain injury in 2016. That is one of the issues too, is people don't tend to believe it if insurance doesn't pay for it. Mm-hmm. But we all know that vitamins and nutrients and nutraceuticals are good. We all know that, but they won't pay for that either in most cases, mm-hmm. unless you get some strange thing going on. So, is that an issue that you have with people? It's like, well, if insurance doesn't pay for it. Then,
yes, there's many times that.
Do you think there's ever going to be a change in that? Do you see anything on the horizon? Are there any people talking about this as this needs to be used?
I really don't see it right now, but I do hope to. I hope so.
Oh, me too.
I think people are going to have to really start speaking up more. I mean, we can't be the only ones that do it. People really have to. I think the more that we educate people on this, and when we share some of these stories, it's going to make people more aware, and so that they actually start asking for these things and demanding and commanding that these things become part of their health and wellness journey.
Yeah,
that's why we call it the holistic evolution. We want things to change.
Exactly.
Yes.
Right, Kelli?
I know.
Exactly.
I don't want to go to the doctor. I don't want to. The only time I ever want to go into the hospital, go to the doctor, is if I actually have some kind of emergency situation. I get into a car accident or something like that. That's what they're great for. They are amazing at doing that kind of thing. And they are amazing at diagnosing things. Right. That is where they are great. But when it comes to the actual healing of chronic illnesses and issues, I really feel our bodies do a lot better when we do things more naturally and we don't add synthetics into the mix.
Yeah, that's the one thing I love so much about biofeedback too, is that yes, it may not be covered under insurance, but is telling you the specific vitamins or nutrients or whatever your body is deficient in, so that even if it were covered under insurance, like they're still they can't tell you like what medication to take. It doesn't work that way. So this is actually fix things. Mm-hmm. Essentially, like the imbalances in the body. And so isn't it great to not have to be guessing what you're deficient in and what supplement you're going to take? You're not going to just pee out the vitamin C or whatever that you buy. Karen can really help tailor to what your body needs.
Absolutely.
Saves you money.
The other thing.
Good.
The other thing that's great with biofeedback is that a lot of people they're not able to absorb a lot of the nutrients that they are taking. And so a big problem is that they're taking all these it could be medications too. They're taking medications, they're taking nutritional supplements, they're eating good foods. However, they're not really absorbing. They're not assimilating anything. And so that's kind of where it's like, well, if you're going to take all of these things, then wouldn't it be nice to know where there's a block in the body, what the weaknesses are in the body, and to open that up with the frequencies going back into the body to teach your body and train the body, what normal is again, because something along the way caused that block. It could have been even a surgery. So surgery sometimes creates a block where then the energy isn't getting there. Or it could be a heavy metal again, or it could be a pathogen, and something is blocking or hijacking the receptor sites to what normally is supposed to go there. And so how do we actually start to remove that? Well, you can do it physically with a lot of these supplements and, chelating things, but you can also do it just with frequency, because of the fact that it's going to start to train the body that, yes, this isn't normal to be here. Detox it, get it out. So frequency going in the body is trying to retrain the body to remember what it's supposed to do. It forgot along the way.
And another important part too of detoxing, right? When you're detoxing, your body also needs to be strong enough to detoxify, to release what it is that is overly toxifying it. Because sometimes when people are too weak, it doesn't work, right, Karen?
Yes, and then we think about it, if the organ systems are so overwhelmed and there are any kind of blockages going on, then you're not going to actually detoxify, and you can actually make things worse. So, say for instance, someone goes and they have to get IV, any kind of IV therapy done, and if their kidneys, their filtration system of their kidneys isn't functioning well, or their gut, they've been constipated for forever, or their liver isn't functioning well. Well, those pathways better be open, because
Yeah.
now all of a sudden you're going to start dumping everything into the bloodstream, and where do you think it's going to like it's almost like a traffic jam happening.
Hmm.
And so then what's going to happen? It's going to reabsorb, and then
Yeah.
where it goes, we don't know, and it could be worse than where it started. So that's kind of where, again, why I love biofeedback is because by actually, we can see which organ systems are really having a tough time getting back online. Because what I see on my end is a rectification number. And so it's telling me how, how quickly that that body part or organ or gland or whatever is responding. And so it's kind of like something that's sleeping, right? And you give it a tap and it's like, oh, okay, yeah, I'm here. I'm doing my job. But there are times when you have to really shake that thing up, because it's been sleeping for a very long time. And so you wouldn't want to put somebody on something that is going to actually be more harmful than good, because then that's not going to help people think very much about this field if they had a really bad experience either. And that is the truth, which I have seen even working as the owner of cafe. I've seen different people come in to eat healthier who have gone to different places to get IV therapies for their Lyme or for anything, all a host of different things, and their organ systems were just so stockpiled, they
Mm.
were not eliminating properly, and so they would come in for biofeedback for me.
Nicole is commenting. She says, Scott, this would be helpful for those in recovery. And I agree
Yeah.
with you, Nicole, 1,000%. Wonder if there's a grant for this. So cool if it could really happen. There are treatment centers that do use these things. There are treatment centers that use everything from brain mapping to biofeedback to all sorts of different modalities. There are treatment centers that fully understand the relationship of the gut to the brain chemistry, and and understand most people that come in, they're coming in with leaky gut syndrome, all sorts of
Mhm.
things, where they're toxifying their body as they're sitting there. It's just they need to heal, and so there are a lot of places that are using those kind of modalities already. Nicole, it's a great point. Unfortunately, because it's not covered by insurance in many cases, it's not as popular as it should be. It should be a lot more popular because it's so non-invasive. Here's one of the things I like to say to critics. All right, if you want to experiment, go experiment with chemotherapy. I'd rather go experiment with biofeedback, because guess which one's not going to hurt me? Go
Exactly.
try it and see what happens. Try Reiki, try these different modalities. I was a non-believer for years until my arm, I was facing surgery for my rotator cuff in my arm. I was facing surgery, and I just watched my father go through 3 surgeries in a row to fix it properly in 1 year, 3 surgeries. And I was so afraid of doing it. And my acupuncturist, finally, I was pretty much forced by a bunch of people, like almost tied to the table, and they did the acupuncture. And I did treatments with acupuncture, and it changed my life. And next thing you know, I got hyperbaric going, I've got chiropractic going, I got acupuncture, all these things, except for the massage thing, because I don't like people touching me. But but I did all these things, and it's amazing. And all I ask is for people to try it. Now, seeing as we've already burned through 40 minutes, and it's amazing how much we could talk about this, Karen. But what I want to know is, if somebody's sitting there and they're like, I feel pretty good, but I know I could probably feel better. Or like you were saying, I wasn't out of shape and it wasn't stuff
Mhm.
like that. I just felt like there was another level I could be at. Is that somebody who should be calling you? Or do they
Yes.
have to wait until they're sick? Let's
No.
let's get that out there.
No, I really feel that almost everybody, even like young kids, can actually really do very well with biofeedback, because you also too, you're becoming aware of, everybody has weak spots in their body. Everybody does. And so you're becoming aware of those weak spots in the body. So you know where to nurture and nourish the body for the rest of your life. And so and how that connection is could be causing other issues. So you really are getting, it's kind of like the whole idea, like to know thyself is to heal thyself, to heal thyself is to know thyself. So that's really what it's all about. And there isn't one person I feel that is really, especially in these days, who hasn't been had issues from the very beginning. I know even like for me, when I was a kid, I was talking about it today. As well as I did later on in life with like through, high school, college, I forget that I was on antibiotics all the time as a kid because I had an ear infection from the get-go. I had ear infections constantly, and then it turned into bronchitis all the time. And I was young. I think we forget like those little things. We kind of blow them off as like, oh, that's normal. No, it's really not normal. And so even those things are something to be aware of. I'm aware that my lungs, even though I've never smoked a cigarette in my entire life, my lungs are a weak spot for me. I've learned that through biofeedback, yet I would never think that because I don't do anything that harms my lungs. I even work out every day and I'm fine. But at the same time, I notice that is an area. And emotionally, it could be also that relationship to any kind of grief that we've ever had. And maybe those areas of traumas in our childhood. And so it's really a great way to understand so that you can truly nourish and nurture those parts of the body. For instance, a lot of people, we see anyone with cancer, they're really, they're kind of shown or they're brainwashed to thinking they have to cut things out, cut things off, and all these things where actually emotionally, a lot of times that element with cancer, that area just needed a lot of nurturing and a lot more nourishment to that area. And so if we can learn that from the beginning and we can find out energetically when our immune system is really running low and what parts of the body are weaker, we can understand, these areas need nurturing. They just need to be loved on. And so maybe we can actually avoid or at least, prolong our life a lot longer by just doing it without all of the drugs.
Right.
Yeah. I really want to re-highlight that. I think biofeedback was one of the more scientific ways that I was able to see how much of an effect our emotions and our spiritual disharmonies or traumas can affect our physical well-being. I was going to an acupuncturist who was able to use a pendulum and kind of douse and get into my energy field and see what was going on. And a lot of times we would check her work to biofeedback and it was accurate. But it was just so amazing to see, that energetically biofeedback was confirming what was going on energetically in my body through past traumas that then we could heal and help. And I just don't want to put too fine a point on the fact that it's just amazing because we're not taught this in school. We're not taught about how much our emotions can generate physical symptoms later in life. And biofeedback is a tool, a modality, an amazing modality that can help detect this before it even does anything. Think of a person who's diagnosed with cancer who's perfectly healthy looking. They exercise all the time. They're great, and especially like a really severe cancer, like colon cancer. Well, what's the colon in Chinese medicine, Karen?
Oh gosh.
It's anger and
liver too. Yeah.
Right. Liver and colon and actually colon even more specifically is worry. And so,
yes, all the emotions of worry in the colon for sure.
Yeah.
And I know that the liver has a lot more to do with a lot of the anger.
Exactly. So unexpressed emotion gets trapped in our organ systems. So you could be like super healthy and still experience cancer. But when you find something like biofeedback, you can find where these things are stored and then start to bring about well-being and holistically help people to heal.
I want to make a point here, and I hope you guys will back me up, and I'm not going to step out of line on this, but we're constantly learning. This is constantly an exploration. What we knew 20 years ago isn't close to what we know now, and what we know in 10 years from now is going to be far beyond what we know now. So there is we can't recognize everything. We don't know everything, but we're learning. And staying stuck in the old ways of you're sick, put a pill in your body. You're sick, get an operation. Staying connected to that, we're falling behind the times. We need to move forward. And moving forward with tools that have been around for how many years? 3,000-4,000 years. These tools have been used. So I just want to say you can't go in a it's not going to recognize everything. Not everything works for everybody, but this is something that is really amazing and moving forward at a rapid pace, isn't it, Karen?
Yes, absolutely. Mm-hmm.
So I don't want people to think that, this is the end all and be all and the cure for everything, because that's the mistake we made with the medicines that we take today. That's why this country, the number one killer of people between ages of 19 and 45 today is fentanyl. And it is the most preventable death out there because you just don't take a pill. But unfortunately, from the day we're born, we're taught to take pills in America. You have a headache, take a pill. You can't sleep, take a pill. You can't wake up, take a pill. If you're feeling sad, take a pill. Everything's about take a pill. So that's all we've become. And we've fallen into this malaise of just doing this. Mm-hmm. Reach outside, do something different, try something different. Yeah. You're not going to be wrong. I mean, you're not going to be sorry for it, for sure. Go ahead.
And for me too, having come from the medical field, medications were meant to usually most medications were just meant to be used for a short period of time. So even a lot of our antipsychotics or antidepressants and anti-anxieties, something happens, a trauma happens, a change in life, a transition you're going through, something increases, you're off balance. You take it for a short period, but we're supposed to be working on that issue so that we can get off of it. And the problem is most doctors are these days are just throwing them on and they don't really take them off. And so people are becoming addicted, and they're also then they need something else. So then, that's not working anymore. They need a better dose of it, or, they need something else. And so that's a problem with our society today.
It's because we are masters at managing symptomology,
yes,
but we suck at finding the cause.
Right.
And
exactly.
If, why not figure out why you get a cold every 6 months or every 4 months you get a cold, and you just take all these pills to clear your sinuses and do all that, but you never found out why you keep getting that cold, why you keep getting sick. They talk about chronic illness, but it's like, well, what causes the chronic part of it? Mm-hmm. Stop just treating the symptomologies. This is a question from Tashana. Are biofeedback and neurofeedback related? Are they related?
They are a bit different. Again, what I do is I do more advanced biofeedback. So what I do is it encompasses so much. I could actually clear auras, when you clear the field of the aura. I could do a little bit of electroacupuncture. I could do I can work on some of the meridians. I can work on the emotional part of the spine. I can work on the physical part of the spine just by, finding out, detecting what's going on at that part of the spine, and then also working and sending those normalizing frequencies to that area so that it actually can better self-heal. So that's where it is a little bit different than some of those other ones. There's so many different kinds out there. So forgive me, I don't know exactly what each of them does. I just know, basically what mine can do and how it's different from the traditional biofeedback.
Okay. All right.
Yeah, excellent. You can even see the entire chakra system on Karen's biofeedback.
Yeah.
It's incredible.
Yeah. And we even do sacred geometry. I have sacred geometry running in the background right now.
Oh, that's awesome.
So anything that is, it'll pick up on what your body's looking for. It uses so many different modalities to help bring balance back.
That's excellent. And again, frequencyfreedom.com. The name of your place is My Woke Wellness. Mm-hmm. Now, somebody's listening to us and they're in Canada right now, or they're in Jersey, or they're somewhere. Should they contact you anyway? I mean, you're in Sarasota,
yeah, absolutely,
which is a smart place to be because it's cold up there. Mm-hmm. But if they contact you, how can you help them from where they are to where you are?
Well, we can do remote again, just like how people connect. There's me and there's you, talking on the phone.
Yeah.
There's that line of communication. Well, just by the person's name, where they were born, and their date of birth, there's a frequency, a very specific, unique frequency, and that's the connection right there. So I have a client that I work in Dubai. And
Wow.
yeah, so you can work anywhere in the world, just like Reiki. You're sending it's energy. Everything is connected that way. It's kind of like the whole idea of quantum. So everything's connected. And that's truly what biofeedback, this type of advanced biofeedback, the person who created it, um, he was, I want to say he was a quantum biologist and I think an electric engineer. So he really understood the energy part of it, and then obviously the biology part of it and the quantum part of it. And so that's kind of why this works so well. So even like people don't understand, like when you're on the phone, how does that know to dial you? And it gets you each time with that phone number.
Right.
Same thing with this type of technology.
I'm just going to speak to all the naysayers out there because I used to be one of you. And every time I heard people talk like this, the first thing in my head thought was, oh, this is all good. You're going to sit around and burn incense and make noise, and you're going to dress and you're going to dance. And you're always beautiful people, but it's fun for you, but it's not real. But we're not using words like ghosts and goblins. We're using words like energy. We're using words like healing. We're using words like quantum mechanics and quantum in biology. And these are all real sciences. And it's just about connecting the dots. If I'm energy and you're energy and everything between us is energy, then what does that tell you? That tells you that there has to be a connection between all those things.
Yeah.
If you don't believe me, come to my house. I'll rub my socks on the carpet and I'll give you a static shock. And then you'll believe me. How did that happen? I'm not a Mr. Zapper superhero. It's because I have electricity in me and I carry electricity and I carry energy. And so I want people to start thinking along those terms. You guys aren't using, hippy dippy terms. These are real sciences, and there's a lot of research behind everything you've talked about today, isn't there, Karen?
Yes, there is. Mm-hmm.
Now, if you wanted to go out and find research that says it's no good, you'll find that. But I'll also find a research that'll still tell you that the world is flat. So don't, look for something, get your answers, but then go find out for yourself. That's what I encourage you. Have you had people come in? I got to ask, have you had people come in saying, this is kind of stupid, but I'm going to do it anyway, and then walk away as believers?
Oh, yes. Almost all the time. Especially when I have somebody who comes in and they now want their family members and their kids to come in. And usually they're like, I don't want to do that. And then they come in, like the husbands and the 15-year-old kids, but they actually end up being the ones that actually spread it even more, as saying like, I can't believe this. Do I have a minute to tell you a quick little story?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Well, I have many of them, but I'll just say one. There's one woman who came to see me, and she just wanted to kind of get a little checkup. She wanted to see how things were going. A friend of hers told her about me, and she wanted to come. And she was a cancer survivor, and she was doing really well. And she really changed her whole lifestyle, though, and so she was doing really well. One of the things that popped up on biofeedback was for some reason it was showing up that she was very high in chlorine. And I was just like, so I've learned with biofeedback, just say it anyways, because it may not make sense to me, but I have to at least say like, maybe that something makes sense. Well, it didn't even make sense to her. And she actually was a little upset. She was like, what do you mean I'm high in chlorine? She goes, I don't even swim in my chlorine pool. I have a filter, on my house. I've got this, I've got that, because this woman she did everything possible to keep herself healthy after being diagnosed with cancer and surviving it. So what happened is that she ends up calling her husband, and her husband goes and calls the guy who usually drops, I guess they had well water or something. And I guess they dropped some kind of chlorine tabs in the well, and they didn't close the filter. So she was getting a ton of chlorine in her drinking water. And it was actually at such a level on biofeedback where it was like one of the highest numbers. So she was actually getting too much chlorine. And that's, again, where something like she came in just to get certain things checked up. And so she leaves with that information. And then through the digging and, asking her husband, and then going and making her husband having to call the guy up and then having him come out. And that's how they ended up finding out, like, oh, so a lot of it is like detective work too. It's like that little bit of like digging around and trying to figure things out. And then her husband comes in and we worked on certain things. But one of the things that was kind of funny, because he was never going to come in, but he was so impressed that it found that he comes in, and one of the things is he was highly allergic to dog hair. And come to find out, one of his biggest traumas is he was bit by a dog when he was a kid. And so we were working on that trauma energetically, and on that emotional trauma. And that was partially one of the reasons why that allergy and that emotion, that the two came together, and it created, that was basically the reasoning. So the emotion, the dog bite created an emotion, and then it ended up causing an allergic response every time he was around dogs. And so, and again, just digging, asking the right questions, trying to, doing the timeline. So the timeline showed an age. And so we're like, okay, what happened around this age? These are the kind of stories like that come about. And that's, you usually leave with a lot more information than you came in. So, and it's fascinating. I enjoy it. It never gets old. It's not mundane work at all. Like I love it.
And that one little piece of information could have totally helped that woman to
Yes.
continue preventing the cancer, because had that gone
Yes.
undetected, who knows
exactly
what that toxin would have created for her.
Exactly. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And it's us, just educate yourself, people. Read, look things up, listen to everybody, and then make up your mind. Don't just listen to one side and say, okay, that's the answer. I didn't want you to listen to us and say, oh, that's my answer forever. No, don't do that. But it's something to explore. I want everybody to explore things. Definitely pay attention to the toxins in your environment, the heavy metals in your drinking water, and all that stuff. I mean, we've traced like heavy metals because we work in treatment. We were testing people, and it's like, oh, if I found somebody with a high concentration of nickel, and they were from the Northeast, I pretty much narrowed it down to all these people were coming from around Toms River, New Jersey. There was a heavy concentration of nickel in their drinking water and in their ground soil there. And it was crazy. If you're going to put filters on your water, don't put filters on your drinking water, put it on your house. Because if you're going to not drink it, but you're going to shower in it, you may as well just drink it, because your body will absorb it. Hello. Anyway, there's so much to learn. Karen, I can't thank you enough for joining us today. I want to remind everybody, frequencyfreedom.com, if you want to find out more about Karen and what she does. And I am hoping, you're not going to say no, because I'm going to look like an idiot. I hope you come back and join us again sometime.
Oh, I would love to. Thank you for having me.
Good. Kelly, great find, I'm telling you. What do you think about the show today, Kelly, and how are you feeling about things?
It went even better, exceeded my expectations. It was beautiful. I'm so happy, Karen. Thank you so much for joining us, agreeing to join us.
Thank you, Kelly, for asking me.
Absolutely. I just, and again, I just want to reiterate that the beautiful harmony between what Karen's doing in the holistic world with biofeedback, combined with her experience as an oncology nurse. I mean, that's a rare combination that you're not going to find very frequently in even biofeedback. So I just really want to highlight that of how special this woman is.
Well, I think that's a true definition of looking at things on both sides. You actually did that. And do you think knowing those both sides and spending time working within both sides has given you a better perspective?
Absolutely. And if things do show up even on biofeedback, that I really feel like sometimes things show up that could be, a cardiovascular or something like that, I will make sure I tell them, you have to, you have to get something explored a little bit more on the other side of things. So yeah, absolutely. We need both.
Actually, I think next time when we come back, we'll talk about the healthy relationship we'd like to see between standard medicine and holistic medicine and alternative medicines and all this. I think all of it can come together with better communication and not jumping to the gun and jumping to drastic measures. I think it would be much better. But Karen, once again, Karen de Gloria, thank you so much for joining us. Kelly, as always, it's a blast doing the show with you. And for all of you out there, I want to thank everybody for joining us. So many people out there, great comments, great questions. Please always ask questions. That's the only way you're going to learn anything, is by continuing to ask questions. But for now, it is time for us to sign off. So for our guest, Karen, For Kelli, and I'm Scott Jones, we're saying everyone take care. Have a great week. We'll see you next time.
Thank you.
Have a great night.
Bye-bye.